Aloha. Welcome to the Digits Custom Template WAD. And this is a really cool WAD because you're going to spread your wings and fly from a user interface layout perspective in this WAD. Because what we're going to do is we're going to create a custom Scala template to deal with an application specific situation. Up till now, we've been using these generic Bootstrap 3 templates that I've written for you that deal with standard, presenting standard Bootstrap elements. But really, you're going to want to go off and build all sorts of crazy stuff yourself for your own applications. And to do that, you got to wade in and actually start feeling comfortable building these things. And they're super simple. So let's build one now so you can see exactly how simple it is. It's not going to take us much time. And you'll be off to the races designing your layouts because you'll see how to do it. Okay? So the idea is, in the last WAD we had a telephone and we added the telephone type. In this WAD, what we're going to basically do is instead of having the boring layout where everything is on one line, we're going to combine together on one line we have one label, telephone, and then we'll have two controls. We have the text area and the select field. And we're going to line up that way, which, is really a much nicer way to do it. And it'll be responsive and all that other good stuff. Okay? So, prior to starting this WAD, as I've said over and over, in fact, I've said it 6 times already, I think, you want to merge in your branch from the last WAD back into master, so we're starting with master. And then the other thing, there's a key little, important thing to note here, which is that in our new contact, where are we? In our new contact, we're using the Bootstrap form horizontal, okay? And that's really cool because what that says is that each of the form groups behave as a grid row, okay? And that has really nice implications for what we're going to do here. What it means is that we're going to have these two forms within a single form group, and they're automatically going to be laid out in a row. All right, so let's see how that all works. So we want to start the timer, and then we're going to create a branch of Digits Master called Custom 1. So we'll go here, and we'll call it Custom 1. And what do we do next? And then we'll perform QA. So we'll go here and we'll run check style, no suspicious code found, and then we'll run activator test, except we won't do it in that directory. We'll do it in the directory that actually has our digits thing. Activator test. And again, this is just sanity check. Make sure whenever we start a session of hacking that we're starting with a clean system. So any mistakes that are introduced are mistakes that we made ourselves. Okay, so it's successful. So now we're going to create a new template in the Bootstrap 3 directory called telephone.scala.html that combines a telephone number and a telephone type in a single form group that spans 12 columns. Okay, that's a lot in a single sentence, but as you can see, it's super not rocket science. We'll just create this as a file, and I think it's telephone.scala.html. So we'll put this in there. Yeah, we'll add it to Git. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to take our text field, because that's the first field that's supposed to be in there, and we'll say, go over here and we'll say copy. Okay. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to compile this sucker. So you can see the make is happening down here in the bottom of it. Because once I've compiled it, and that means IntelliJ kind of understands how this thing works, hopefully then we can actually refactor it a little bit. And you'll see why, because what we're going to need to do is pass into this template, we have to pass in both a text area, and a select. Okay, so right now we just have, each of these just takes one kind of text field, but we're going to need one text field when we're done that's for the text, from the text thing, and another one from this select, and they each take their own field, right? The field represents the one field is going to represent the 12-digit string, and the other field is going to represent the type. Okay. So anyway, we compiled this thing, and then what we can do now is we can rename, because we use the same parameter name field in both of our text and select field. We're going to have two of them in this, so we don't want to name them field, and we would prefer not to name them field 1 or whatever. So let's refactor them with a Shift F6 from field to, say, like telephone field, tel field. Okay. So that magically changes all of that. And then the other thing about these application-specific templates is that since they're application-specific, let's not make them generic. Okay, so if we're not using stuff that, if we don't need to pass in a parameter, let's not do it. Let's make our life more simple. So for example, this label field, in the case of our application-specific template, we know what the label is always going to be. It's always going to be telephone. So let's just put that in there. Okay? And then the placeholder, we always know what that placeholder is going to be for the telephone. So let's just get rid of that and replace that by 808-956-1111. Okay, and then we know we never use help text in this application. I'm not sure why we're so bad about it, but we don't like help text. So let's get rid of that as well, and that means we can get rid of this parameter. Okay? So now we've got this nice little template that's going to show the telephone text field. Then we want to add in the select field. Okay, now notice we've got this outermost form group, and as I said before, form groups form an implicit row in the kind of the Bootstrap grid, representation. So what we're going to do here is we know that in our picture we no longer have a telephone type label. We just say telephone. So we don't need this label line right here. In fact, this label line right here. What we just need is this div that includes that form control. Okay? So let's take that text, go to telephone, and then we'll copy it in right here. Okay? Now you notice there's a bunch of references to things that don't exist. So let's try to fix that. So we can start by saying field, field. Okay, and then that gets rid of that, and then is multiple is a Boolean, so that gets rid of that, and then option map is a map string Boolean. Okay, and then we know we don't use help in digits, which is kind of sad, but we don't. And everything else here looks pretty reasonable. Okay, so let's just compile this thing, because I do see some little red lines. I'd like to get rid of them if possible, but it's going to be up to IntelliJ, not to me, to get rid of the red lines. Okay, so we've done that, and I think rather than calling this just generically field, why don't we do a Shift F6 and rename it to type field? So we have a tel field and a type field. Okay, and so we make all those renames, and then I'm going to read through it, and I notice here, I'm just noticing that this guy did not get renamed. So that's bad for IntelliJ. It's not perfect at this whole refactoring thing inside Scala template. So be on the lookout, I guess, is all I can say. It's not yet smart enough to really refactor perfectly when it comes to this stuff. Okay, anyway, so we've got this. Now we've got our custom telephone form group, and the only other thing that it wants us to do is to make it a single form group that spans 12 columns. Well, we've got a call small 2, a call small 10, that's 12, and then another 10. So we're up to 22, so we got to reduce that. Well, 2 for the label sounds good, so why don't we make this, I don't know, 6 and 4. Let's say 6 and 4. Okay, so that's our custom template. You know, it's got parameters like any other function, and then it invokes the parameters by using this at notation, and then it can invoke sub variables within that, and so forth. Okay, so really this Scala templating language is really not that tough once you have some examples to start with. Okay, so the next thing we have to do, we have to place the error text directly under the form control, test to make sure error text shows up correctly. Well, it's looking pretty good because it's just where it was always before, right in that div. So I think we'll be fine, but we'll see this when we try it out. And we hardwired the labels and so forth, so we've simplified the parameters. We're keeping the is multiple in there. I could show you how to get rid of that, but for the moment, I think it's just better to leave it the way it is. And if you can try to get rid of it and see, you'll have to make a couple other changes to make it work. Okay, so we'll get to, now we go here, and here we need to actually call this sucker. So we'll say telephone. Well, actually we won't say telephone, we'll say at telephone because we want to call our little template. And then we know our first field that we're going to call it with is this contact form telephone. And then the second field that we're going to call it with is the contact form telephone type. And then the third field I don't remember. The third field is multiple. So let's find an example of that. And then the fourth field is the option map. So let's find an example of that, which is this right here. Okay, and so now we've got our stuff. We got to get rid of this, otherwise we're going to have a form with the same IDs in it, and life will be pretty messed up. But that looks pretty good. Let's do a propeller F9 to make sure that we don't have any sneaky compilation errors. Okay, so let's do an activator run. Whoops, doggone it, I said the wrong thing. Activator run. Okay, so we'll go to home. Okay, then we'll go to new contact, and much to our happiness, we see that it's now laid out in one line. So let's try and add, and we see that, okay, validation all works the way we want it to be. Nothing quite unusual about this. 808.222.2222. Let's select a value, work, press add, go to home. There it all is. Let's do an edit, change to mobile, add. And it's not surprising that all this works fine. Let's finish by checking for check style. Why would this be any different? We were just doing Scala code, and similarly, let's do an activator test. But really, all we were doing was fiddling around with the view, right? So it would be quite surprising if, well, tests always are surprising when they fail. So it could absolutely fail. That's why we want to run it again. But the point is that we made a change just to the layout of the code, And as long as we kept our variables and so forth all together, there's no real reason why things shouldn't pass. So they did. So we're going to call that 12 minutes for this WOD. And I think that once you get familiar with this, it's going to be a really fun time for you, because now you're going to be able to build these templates that abstract away. So your Bootstrap 3 directory can have all these domain, both generic and domain-specific templates. And then when you write your views, you can have all these very nice views that, that are very compact and very readable and hard to get wrong, really, because there's, not a lot of stuff there. So have fun with this.